Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll continue following the heartfelt and challenging journey between lythica, a strong single mother, and Hung, a sincere police officer who's willing to sacrifice everything to protect the love he believes in. In the previous episode, unable to withstand the pressure from his mother, who kept forcing him to marry Hung, their neighbor's niece, Hung made a difficult decision. He left home. Though he loves his mother dearly, Hung knew that staying would mean losing the woman he truly loves. So he chose to leave, bringing only his clothes and a firm belief that sincere love would one day be understood. However, to keep his mother from worrying, Hung simply told her he was going on a short vacation to clear his mind. But deep down, he knew this wasn't just a trip, it was the first step toward building a new life with Hoai. A life where he no longer had to hide or live according to someone else's expectations. But the question remains. Will Hung's mother change her mind because of his departure? Will this temporary distance help her realize the pain her son is going through? Or will everything become even more tense once she learns that Hung is now living with the very woman she refuses to accept? And as for Hoai, after all the storms she's endured, does she still have the strength to walk hand in hand with Hung through harsh prejudice? Or will she once again feel like she's unworthy of happiness and choose to step away? Stay with us until the end of today's video to find out how the story unfolds. Although Hung told his mother that he was just going on a short vacation to clear his mind, the truth was, he didn't go far. He quietly stayed at a close friend's house, a place hidden enough to avoid his mother's search, yet close enough for him to occasionally return and gaze at the familiar house where his mother still lived alone. Each time he stood at a distance, watching his mother sitting silently on the porch or bending down to water the vegetable garden in the backyard, a deep ache would rise in his chest. He knew she was no longer young. He knew she was angry at him, but also worried, also hurting. Though conflicts were inevitable, Hung's love for his mother never faded. He still watched over her, just from afar. During his time off from work, Hung spent every morning and afternoon with Lythica. They would go to the market together, cook simple yet warm meals, the kind that carried the flavor of the love they were quietly building. Sometimes, when Hung stopped by unexpectedly, Ca would smile gently and place her hand on his chest, as if listening to the heartbeat of a man who now lived for her and her little boy. That child, Ca's son, had grown increasingly attached to Hung. In those innocent eyes, Hung was no longer a stranger, but a real father. He patiently taught the boy how to build block towers, how to sound out simple words, took him on walks through the neighborhood every evening, whispering words full of love and tenderness. The bond between Ca and Hung also deepened with time. There was no longer hesitation or uncertainty. Now, they truly saw each other as family. The way they held hands became firmer, their embraces more natural, and the way they looked at each other was no longer clouded by doubt. As for Hung's mother, ever since the day she watched her son walk out the door with a suitcase in hand, her heart had felt like it was being torn apart. Though she said nothing, deep down she knew, the vacation Hung mentioned was nothing more than an excuse to leave the house quietly. Hung had never been the type to travel alone. Every time he took time off, he would bring his mother along or go back to visit relatives. But this time, he left without a clear return date, without a single word of farewell, and that was enough to stir an ominous intuition in a mother's heart. She suspected, and in fact, she was almost certain, that Hung was staying with Hoai. That suspicion didn't come from anyone's words, but from a mother's instinct, an instinct rooted in a deep sense of shame she associated with her son's relationship with that woman. The more she thought about it, the more betrayed she felt, as though the very son she had spent her life raising and placing her hopes on had turned against her. Unable to bear the feeling of being deceived and disrespected, she quietly grabbed the small kitchen knife she often used, tucked it into her coat, not to cause harm, but as a warning, and headed alone to Hoai's house. Her eyes were bloodshot, whether from fury or sleepless nights was unclear, and her graying hair whipped in the wind as she stood at the gate. Without pressing the doorbell or calling out, she flung the gate open, consumed by righteous indignation. From the moment she stepped inside, she didn't need any explanation. In her eyes, CA was the woman who had stolen her son, a widowed single mother with nothing to her name, daring to dream of becoming her daughter-in-law. She shouted angrily, without holding back, each word like a blade stabbing into the heart of the woman trying to stay upright under the storm of prejudice from a mother unwilling to bend. CA quietly endured it, trying to explain that Hung wasn't there. That she didn't even know exactly where he was staying, since he hadn't told her either. But the mother didn't believe a word. She stormed through the house, opening doors, searching corners, eyes scanning wildly as if Hung might be hiding somewhere. Her suspicion had spiraled into frenzy, and CA, hurt and shaken, couldn't bring herself to speak further. Not finding Hung, she turned back with a piercing glare, pointed her finger at CA's face, and spat out cruel, demeaning words. She declared that Hung was already engaged to Hung, the neighbor's niece, and that CA had no right to interfere in her son's life. She demanded that CA stay away from Hung, and warned that if Hung ever came here again, CA was to inform her immediately so she could come and take him home. Her final words struck like a cold blade. You should know your place. Someone like you should never dream of marrying into this family. With that, she turned and walked away. Her figure slowly disappeared down the narrow alley, but the chill and bitterness she left behind lingered in every corner of the house, and in every corner of the heart of the woman she had just humiliated without a chance to defend herself. After being repeatedly humiliated by Hung's mother, her dignity insulted time and again, Hoai had once considered letting go. She wasn't a weak woman, but the wounds kept piling up, and the cruel words from Hung's mother cut into her heart like sharp blades. There were nights when, after her child had fallen asleep, CA would sit alone on the porch, staring into the pitch-black sky, asking herself, am I being selfish for trying to hold on to a man like Hung? But every time she thought of giving up, Hung's image would appear in her mind, how he used to knock on her door persistently even when his mother forbade him to, how he gently fed her son with loving eyes, or how he quietly brought her small gifts, diapers, boxes of milk, never once complaining. That man didn't just love her, he loved the broken parts of her, loved her child like his own flesh and blood. It was that very love that made it impossible for CA to walk away. She couldn't let temporary pain wipe away what her heart truly felt. She thought, if I can try harder, if I can work more, earn better, live better, maybe Hung's mother will eventually accept me, maybe she'll see that I'm not a burden, but a woman worthy of Hung's love and protection. With that belief in her heart, CA threw herself into work tirelessly. At dawn, she would wake, pack her tools, carry her baby to the neighbor's house, then strap her basket to her back and walk down the rugged dirt path to the fields. She harvested sweet potatoes, gathered greens, and picked vegetables under the blazing sun or in the drizzle of early season rain. But she never once complained. The more exhausted she felt, the harder she worked. The more difficult it got, the more determined she became. Her body, hardened by years of labor, had long grown used to hardship. Her sunburnt hands, her rough, calloused palms, these were the marks of a life lived in toil. And before long, her basket would be filled with potatoes. She'd wade into the stream and wash each one clean, one by one. The cool water ran over her trembling hands, sore from fatigue, but her eyes, they were bright with resolve. Once cleaned, she carried her goods to the early market to sell. Her produce was always clean, fresh, chemical-free, and the vendors admired her for it. Everyone at the market knew her as honest, hardworking, sincere. Some bought out of sympathy, but most bought because they believed in the hands that cultivated such food, and believed in the determined eyes of a woman rebuilding her life from ruins. Some days she sold out quickly and used the time to wash dishes at a nearby restaurant. Other times she helped harvest lychees, pick corn, anything that brought in a bit more income. Though the work was tough, her heart no longer felt heavy. Every time she came home to her son's smile, or caught Hung looking at her with tenderness, she knew she was on the right path. And the first bit of money she managed to save wasn't spent on herself, but on a new pair of shoes for her son, a new shirt for Hung for the holidays, and occasionally, a basket of fresh fruit she asked the neighbor to deliver to Hung's mother, even though she knew the gift might be rejected or tossed aside. But CA didn't give up, because she understood. Not all walls can be broken by force. Some walls can only be melted by the quiet persistence of love. During his rare days off, Hung lived in a state of inner conflict, torn between the deep love he had for Hoai and her son, and the lingering guilt of leaving his mother alone in the old house, still clinging tightly to her unshakable beliefs. He stayed at a friend's place, doing small work errands each day to avoid suspicion, but in reality, he was quietly preparing something special. At first, Hung had considered going on a solo trip, to escape the chaos, to clear his mind. But standing in the rented room, staring at the suitcase at his feet, he suddenly realized, what was the point of traveling alone? There could be no joy if the woman he loved and the child he had come to see as his own weren't by his side. And so, he made a decision. This journey wouldn't be just for him. It would be a small gift for Hoai and her son, a thank you for coming into his life, a silent embrace for all the hardships they had endured, and a promise of the future he believed in, one where the three of them would walk together. Hung rented a private car. At dawn, he drove to CA's house. She had just returned from the early market, her back soaked with sweat, arms full of muddy sweet potatoes. When she saw Hung step out of the car, smiling, and gently handing her a soft floral dress, her eyes flickered with surprise, and her heart trembled slightly. "I want to take you and the baby away for a few days," he said softly. "Not to run away, but to let you rest, to let him play, and to finally do something I've been dreaming of for a long time, to care for the two most important people in my life." CA stood frozen. She had never thought of going on a trip, never dared to dream of days without money worries, without having to rise before dawn to dig for roots or carry bundles of vegetables. But when she saw the warmth and sincerity in Hung's eyes, she nodded. Not because she wanted to escape hardship, but because in that moment, she realized, Hung didn't just want to protect her. He wanted to show her that she deserved happiness. The car rolled away from the narrow alley, carrying the soft giggles of a child in his mother's arms, the shy yet radiant smile on CA's face, and Hung's heart filled with hope. At a riverside resort, for the first time in her life, Hoai experienced a different world. No noisy market calls. No scrambling for change in the rain. No judgmental stares. Only the sound of gentle waves, a clear blue sky, and her son's joyous laughter as he ran barefoot along the sandy shore for the very first time. Hung took them out to enjoy dishes CA had only ever seen on TV or heard about from others. He thoughtfully ordered child-friendly meals, cut the food into small pieces, and gently wiped the boy's mouth after each wide, happy bite. That afternoon, the three of them boarded a small boat, drifting gently along the calm river. The sky was high and startlingly clear. The golden sunlight kissed the water's surface, making CA's hair shimmer like silk. She sat beside Hung, hand in hand, her heart fluttering like a girl in love for the first time. On the boat, Hung said quietly, "If I ever get the chance, I want to take you both everywhere with me. Nothing fancy, just being together, happy, and at peace like this, that's enough." CA didn't respond, but silent tears slid down her cheeks. not out of sadness, but because, for the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. Truly loved, as a woman who mattered. And the little boy, too young to understand grown-up words, felt the warmth from both mom and dad, and nestled his head onto Hung's shoulder, falling asleep peacefully. No one said it aloud, but all three of them knew. This was a moment beyond precious. A family, not by blood, not by paperwork, but by love. And that alone was enough. After their short getaway, CA and Hung returned to the rhythm of everyday life, where there were no more quiet boat rides on the river, no more gentle waves lapping the shore, but instead, hurried mornings, heavy baskets on tired shoulders, and coins counted through sweat and effort. Hung hadn't returned home yet. Though his leave had ended, he continued staying at his close friend's house, not because he was hiding, but because he hadn't yet found the right way to talk to his mother. He knew that without caution, the conversation could deepen the rift between them. Still, Hung had resumed work. He put on his familiar police uniform, returned to his daily duties, unexpected meetings, and long shifts. On the surface, he appeared calm and responsible as always, but his close colleagues could sense something had changed. Perhaps it was the steadier gaze, the more frequent smile, as if within the heart of this officer, there now existed a true place to return to. A woman to love. And a child to think of after each mission was done. As for CA, after the trip, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, not just to live for her child, but for the future she now dared to imagine with Hung. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least now, she was no longer walking it alone. Today, the sun was shining. CA woke up early, taking advantage of the clear morning to harvest golden-ripe bananas from the backyard. Each fruit was carefully selected, plump, fragrant, and evenly yellow. She washed them clean, dried them with care, and wrapped them in fresh green banana leaves. Then she carried her son on her back in the familiar woven basket and headed to the market. Her stall was never large, but it always caught the eye of passers-by. People didn't just buy because the bananas were sweet or fragrant, they bought out of affection for the petite woman with the little boy always clinging to her leg. There was a quiet kindness at the market. A fish vendor might trade for a bunch of bananas, the vegetable seller would gift her some fresh greens still damp with morning dew, and familiar customers stopped by not just to buy, but to ask, "How's the little one today? Are things a bit easier for you now?" CA always responded with a gentle smile. A smile that couldn't hide the fatigue, but was sincere and warm. Her child chirped greetings to everyone, tiny hands offering up bananas as if eager to help his mother. The way they stuck together, mother and son, touched the hearts of many. After selling out, CA counted her earnings, not much, but enough for a good meal. A small reward for herself and her son after a day filled with sun, wind, and weary steps. They stopped by a small roadside eatery and ordered 2 bowls of steaming hot pho. CA sat there, watching her son eat happily, her eyes glowing with a quiet joy, the kind of happiness some spend a lifetime chasing. She no longer felt disadvantaged, because she knew, the love Hung gave to her and her child was real. And every drop of sweat she shed today was building a home, not just of shelter, but of love. On the other side, Hung's mother was still consumed by confusion and anger. Ever since her outburst at Hoai CA's house, she hadn't been able to reach her son. No matter how many calls she made, Hung didn't answer. No matter how many messages she sent, all she received in return was deafening silence. She didn't know where her son was. She didn't know if he ever planned to come home. And more painfully, she didn't know how much space she still occupied in his heart. Despite her worry, one thing had never left her mind: Hung must marry Hung, the neighbor's niece whom she had always deemed the perfect daughter-in-law, beautiful, well-mannered, and with no baggage from the past. In her eyes, Hung was the ideal woman, the one worthy of stepping into their home, the one she could entrust her son to. That day, after several sleepless nights, she finally called on Hung, hoping the girl still had intentions toward Hung. But to her surprise, Hung gently declined. She didn't give a reason, but Hung's mother understood, and Hung must have already known about the recent trip Hung took with Hoai. The soft yet firm tone in Hung's voice over the phone stunned her. Even the girl she approved of was stepping away. Rejected and unable to find her son, she fell into a state of desperation. But this time, instead of barging into CA's house like before, she chose a quieter method: surveillance. She told herself, if I want to bring Hung back, I need a softer approach. So, from early morning, she hid behind bushes near CA's home, beneath the banana trees by the side garden, waiting, just waiting for Hung to show up. And just as she had predicted, that afternoon, a familiar motorbike rolled slowly into the alley. Hung got off, arms full of bags, snacks, milk, new clothes for the child, all carefully prepared. He came like a man returning to his family, like a devoted father after a long day's work. Her fists clenched. Inside, a storm of emotions surged: anger, heartache, and deep resentment. But she took a deep breath, stepped out from hiding, and walked forward in silence. Her sudden appearance startled both Hung and CA. Hung instinctively stepped in front of CA, like a reflex to protect her. His eyes were wary, bracing for the harsh words he feared his mother might hurl again. But to their surprise, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't hurl insults. Instead, she looked at her son for a long moment, let out a slow breath, and tried to steady her emotions. Hung, come home, son. I won't stop you anymore. If you still want to see her, I'll allow it. But come home first, then you can visit here whenever you like. Her voice was softer than ever. No longer an order, but almost a plea. She knew, if she still wanted to keep her son close, the only thing left she could use was a mother's love, nothing else. Hung froze. He looked at his mother, then at CA. He couldn't believe his ears. The mother who had always been rigid, obsessed with honor, now said, "This?" He asked again. And again. If I come home, you won't insult her again? You won't force me to marry Hung? You won't interfere with my love life anymore? She nodded, slowly. I just want you to come home. I agree. That promise was like a gentle thread trying to mend the long-frayed bond between mother and son. Though part of him still doubted, her softened eyes made Hung believe, maybe this time, she truly wanted to reconcile. He turned to CA and took her hand. He said nothing, just held it tightly, a silent vow that no matter what happens, he would protect her. Then, Hung followed his mother home. His steps were slow, but steady. His heart was torn, hopeful, yet uneasy. However, those soft-spoken words that day were not born of genuine change. They were part of a carefully laid plan, a tactical move to bring Hung home peacefully. Because deep inside her, the fire of resistance towards CA had never gone out. If anything, witnessing her son's devotion and the persistence of the woman she saw as unworthy only fueled her determination to break them apart, no matter the cost. And so, as Hung returned home believing his mother had truly changed, behind his back, a quiet, calculated, and cruel plan was already being formed. A plan without shouting, without confrontation, but enough to slowly, piece by piece, push Hoai out of Hung's life, for good. Will Hung see through the deception behind his mother's promise? Will CA, after all the wounds and hopes, survive the storm that's quietly approaching? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover. What is Hung's mother really planning? And will love be strong enough to overcome the coming betrayal?
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì mọi người đã xem video hôm nay mà kênh mình lên. Thì do tiến trình của video kênh Lý Tử Diệp nó hơi chậm nên hôm nay thì mình lên video Lý Hoài Ca cho mọi người xem. Mình hy vọng là video Lý Hoài Ca của mình sắp tới sẽ được mọi người ủng hộ nhiều hơn. Tại vì hiện tại thì cái lượt xem cho video Lý Hoài Ca thì nó rất là thấp luôn đó mọi người. Vì có thể là do mọi người chưa có tiếp cận với nội dung này nhiều, và do mọi người xem video về Lý Tử Diệp quen rồi nên là không có lựa chọn xem video Lý Hoài Ca. Thì mình mong rằng mọi người có thể ủng hộ kênh của mình nhiều hơn và tất cả các nội dung trên kênh của mình nhiều hơn. Tại vì tất cả các nội dung trên kênh của mình thì mình đều thấy nó rất là hay và ý nghĩa, và mình mong rằng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ nhiều hơn để mình có thể đưa thêm nhiều câu chuyện khác nữa đến với mọi người. Ví dụ như câu chuyện của mẹ đơn thân lytieuca hoặc là mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân các thứ nữa để cho mọi người cùng xem. Thì mình hy vọng là mọi người sẽ ủng hộ kênh của mình nhiều hơn nữa nha. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều. Tạm biệt.